Did you know that ticket prices can actually go down right before the game? That's where Game Time comes in. Game Time tracks ticket prices in real time from thousands of trusted sellers, then shows you all the best deals. So we can get tickets at the last minute for up to 60% off. Download Game Time now.
Hey folks, happy Friday. Welcome into the Cam Rogers Show, episode 51. I'm back here in Dallas after a very fun weekend in Atlanta for the College Football Playoff National Championship game. Alabama taking on Georgia. Great time. We thank you for tuning in to all of the program from there. It's January 12th, 2018. We thank you for tuning in to this edition of the show. A fun one at that. I'm Cam Rogers. Follow me on Twitter at Mr. Rogers99 and hit me with those comments, those reactions as we go throughout the hour as I take you up until 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Here's a look at what we have coming at you here today. We'll start things off with a divisional round preview. Some good games coming at us here this weekend. We'll start things off with the Eagles and the Falcons, get to the Patriots and Titans, Steelers and Jags, and the Saints and Vikings. Going through every single game, I'll give you my predictions in terms of who is going to win this weekend and head to their respective conference championship games. All right, we got some Super Bowl 52 odds, updated rankings, and I'll give you my best bets. I got 3 teams that you should be putting your money on as we head towards Super Bowl 52. I got a top 10 mock draft as well. And the latest NFL rumors out there, I have been searching on the interwebs, been with my contacts, and I've got some good rumors for all of you out there. And a final word about LeVeon Bell threatening the Steelers. If he does not get a long-term deal, what did he threaten them with? I'll tell you about it at the 55-minute mark. Before we get into all that, a special thank you to the Game Time app. Get up to 60% off all those last-minute sports tickets, concert tickets, and so much more. Chatsports.com/tickets is the website, folks. If you want to go to a Baylor basketball game, starting price, $1. If you want to go see Katy Perry, $86. If you're hot and cold about it, hey, you know what? You should go onto the Game Time app and check it out and get a little Katy Perry ticket action because those prices are pretty darn good. Hot and cold, I hope you all know that reference out there. Okay, let's get into the playoffs divisional round. Let's go to the AFC. New England taking on the Titans. That's Saturday, 8:15. And then Pittsburgh taking on Jacksonville. That is the Sunday early game. And we'll start things off with New England taking on the Titans as your Saturday nightcap. And look, I am of the camp that firmly believes the Tennessee Titans should not even be in the playoffs. The Chiefs are perennial playoff losers. It is no surprise that the Titans found a way to win that football game. But the New England Patriots are a totally different animal. Tom Brady has been automatic at home, especially coming off a bye. And for the Patriots, I think they are just going to simply outcoach, outmatch the Titans in every facet of this game. This game really doesn't need all that much analysis here. Look, you have a Titans team that sure can run the football with Derrick Henry. Marcus Mariota showed some flashes last week as well. The defense is solid, especially in the front seven. But this is like the Houston Texans and Brock Osweiler heading into New England last year in the divisional round and getting their butts kicked. Like, that's kind of what I'm visualizing. I'm leaning more towards that kind of matchup rather than that upset victory for the New York Football Jets back in 2010 with Mark Sanchez and Sean Green, and they found a way to beat the Patriots coming off a bye week. Definitely not leaning towards that direction. So the main injury storyline here is at running back. DeMarco Murray is out for the Titans, while the status of Mike Gillislee fairly unclear. He did not practice yesterday. Or actually, he did practice yesterday, but in limited fashion. Rex Burkhead has been limited in practice as well, so some injuries to monitor there at the running back position for New England. But if any team can combat the distractions of the outside, it's the Patriots. Spygate didn't hurt them to a 16-0 season. Deflategate didn't hurt them to that Super Bowl victory over Seattle. This ESPN report won't hurt them either. And look, you look at this situation here with this story of ESPN coming out and saying that there's a rift among Kraft and Brady and Belichick and all this stuff. And I talked about it on my show. I think it is interesting. I think it poses some truthfulness. But will it be a distraction for a Lombardi Trophy run for the Patriots? I don't think so. And I think Bill Belichick will have New England's best effort this week. Now, the real concern for me is actually Tom Brady's play. He had 6 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, and a quarterback rating of 81.6 in the month of December. And luckily for Brady, he's had the help of one Dion Lewis, who's been fantastic of late, 366 yards and 5 touchdowns from scrimmage in the last 3 games. So if it weren't for Dion Lewis, the Patriots could have lost a good share of games in December. So I do have my concerns about Tom Brady's ability right now. Now, am I going to say that he's on the absolute decline and all that stuff? Absolutely not. I mean, I still trust him the most out of any quarterback in the playoff field right now. But it's something to monitor here. I mean, there's a very real possibility that the Titans could make this a close game because they have that front 7 with Orakpo and Wesley Woodyard and Jarrell Casey. They can get after the quarterback and stop the run effectively. And if Tom Brady has the jitters, you know, he gets antsy in the pocket, that can happen sometimes, this game could certainly be close. But here's the reality. The Patriots are 9-1 at home in the divisional round. With that one lone loss, of course, to the 2010 Mark Sanchez-led New York Jets that I talked about earlier. Brady also lost an AFC Championship game at home against my Baltimore Ravens, I must note. By the way, we have a reaction poll for this game. Who you got, Titans or Patriots? A like for the Titans, a heart for the Patriots. Throw in your votes. I'll be tracking them. So the glimmer of hope here for the Titans. Defense is pretty darn good. It's pretty ferocious on that front line. Kevin Byard at safety has had an elite year, has not been talked about much. And if the Titans can bottle up Dion Lewis and force Brady into some mistakes here, I would watch out. Now, that's the one real possibility that the Titans can make this a close game, is if that defense harasses that offensive line for New England. I don't think Tennessee is going to be able to put up enough points to go kind of in a shootout type of methodology here with the Patriots. So that said, Patriots may not own a good pass rush, but Belichick will have a good game plan for containing Mariota in the pocket. So it's going to be all up to Mariota standing in there, deciphering a Belichick and Patricia defense and being able to make those throws against the likes of Stephon Gilmore, Malcolm Butler, Patrick Chung, Devin McCourty. All have solid grades according to Pro Football Focus back there in the secondary. They can make some plays. All right, so New England, Tennessee in the divisional round. The winner goes to the AFC Championship game. No surprise here. You can probably already tell by the tone of my analysis. I've got the Patriots 37-21. Like I said, very reminiscent of Brock Osweiler and the Texans coming into New England and, you know, pretty much stinking up the joint. So I've got the Patriots going to the AFC Championship game. You all know out there that I already have them going to the Super Bowl and losing to the Minnesota Vikings. So this should not be of a shock to many people out there. So that's your Saturday night game. Patriots taking on the Tennessee Titans. Let's go back to the AFC playoff schedule here. And that other game in the AFC bracket, Pittsburgh against Jacksonville. That's the 1 o'clock game on Sunday. And the Steelers, of course, will be playing at home. We all know the Jaguars beat Pittsburgh earlier this year, 30-9. Ben Roethlisberger, 5 interceptions, blah, blah, blah. Forget about that game, please. In the NFL, these games are independent of one another. And especially in this regard, there is no way in heck Ben Roethlisberger is going to throw 5 interceptions, which means Blake Bortles is going to have to bear some more responsibility, more so than he had against Buffalo a week ago in the wild card round, right, where he rushed for more yards, it seems, than he threw it. I mean, he was absolutely awful in this game for much of it. And if it weren't for the Buffalo Bills being inexperienced and, you know, just kind of being happy to be in the playoffs, the Jaguars probably could have lost that game. So these aren't the Bills. I'm talking about the Steelers here. If the Jaguars can't run the football, they're in major trouble. And the Steelers are a different team now, looking back than from week 5. And Leonard Fournette has been struggling. Ran for 57 yards on 21 carries against the Bills, one of the worst run defenses in the league. And now Leonard Fournette is coming up against Cameron Hayward and Stephon Tuitt up front that are disruptive. And the Steelers, they don't have the greatest front seven in terms of run-stopping ability, but they're certainly better than the Buffalo Bills. And if Leonard Fournette can't run against the Bills, you know, you translate that over, he certainly can run against the Pittsburgh Steelers too. So there's going to be a situation where it's going to be on the Jacksonville defense to create at least 3 turnovers, and Blake Bortles is going to have to play out of his mind. So it's got to be a perfect, essentially, execution for Jacksonville outside of the run game. Because I'm already going to say, the run game is going to be absent in this football game. Pittsburgh's going to stack the box. And with the Steelers coming off a bye, they're obviously well rested. Antonio Brown is apparently 100%. That's what he's saying. And I'm really watching this fun matchup between him and Jalen Ramsey. I think this is going to be a lot of fun, and the two players going at it, both elite at their respective positions. Brown had 10 receptions for 157 yards in that last meeting between the two. So there you go. That's something to monitor. So the Steelers own the playoff experience here, while the Jaguars, I think, are just kind of sipping on the green Kool-Aid, if you will, kind of enjoying the ride in the playoffs. I think they're going to run into a bit of a buzzsaw here. Look, Jacksonville's defense is great. Ben may throw a pick or two, but Blake Bortles will not have any support in the run game because that offensive line is brutal outside of center Brandon Linder. And you can't rely on this defense for Jacksonville to intercept Roethlisberger 5 times. By the way, Jacksonville's front seven is leaky in the run game, so you could see a lot of success from one LeVeon Bell on the ground, which would create some plays down the field for Roethlisberger. So, look, do I give the Jaguars a shot? Of course, you can give a team a shot in the playoffs. Anything can happen. But on the AFC side of things, it just seems like we are destined for an AFC championship game between the Steelers and the Patriots. Those two are the best in the AFC. And so I am taking Pittsburgh 27-17. Blake Bortles looked awful a week ago. I think he carries that over. And Heinz Field will be rocking. You got the terrible towel and all that stuff. Trust me, I know a playoff atmosphere in Pittsburgh with the Ravens making a few appearances there back in the postseasons of recent memory. And so I know these towels are going to be a-swirling. I don't think Blake Bortles is ready for this atmosphere. This is not Week 5. Give me Pittsburgh 27-17. Okay, let's take a look at the NFC side of things. Philadelphia taking on Atlanta. That is your first game of your football weekend tomorrow, 4:35 Eastern. Then you got Minnesota taking on New Orleans. I think the winner of that game at the bottom there will go to the Super Bowl. All right, let's get to Philadelphia and Atlanta first. And this is an intriguing game. I mean, you look at the Falcons, they did a good job on the defensive side, limiting one of the better scoring offenses in the league last week in the LA Rams. And for the Falcons and Eagles here, I think this has a making of a low-scoring game. Matt Ryan has gone 7 straight games without having multiple touchdown passes. We all know that Nick Foles has been struggling to kind of get it into gear, but I think a week of practice, of rest for Nick Foles, maybe studying the rule book, or not the rule book, the playbook a little more, obviously will help things. So, you know, I'm not writing off Nick Foles just yet. I still think he's an effective quarterback, and I still believe the Philadelphia Eagles can get to the next round with him. And the one concern for the Eagles is this defense for Atlanta. End of the season ranked 9th in total D, 12th in pass D, 9th against the run, and held the Rams in the wildcard round to just 13 points. So even though the Falcons have taken some steps back on the offensive side, it looks like that defense is really rounding into form. Deion Jones and Grady Jarrett have had fantastic years in that front seven. And you got Trufant in the secondary, who's as good as they get at the cornerback position. So you have a good Falcons defense, but you also have a really good Philadelphia Eagles defense that's well rested. And the big question for that side of the ball for Philadelphia, who can contain Julio Jones, who has been dealing with a bit of an injury here, missed some practice time, or at least limited. The last time Jones played the Eagles was in 2016, and he caught 10 passes for 135 yards. Now, Philadelphia's best corner, Patrick Robinson, has been elite. The only problem is he plays out of the slot, and Jones plays on the outside, so it's up to Ronald Darby and Jalen Mills to help contain Julio Jones. And I'm also watching Atlanta's offensive line against Philadelphia's defensive front. You got Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox, who are elite interior defenders. And when I say elite, guys, I'm talking about the Pro Football Focus grades that, will rank from elite to above average to all this stuff. Fletcher Cox is 5th among defensive linemen. Brandon Graham, 8th. That's some elite stuff. And the Falcons struggle at guard. Of course, they have Alex Mack at the center position, but both guards have poor Pro Football Focus grades. So if Graham and Cox can eat those guards alive, then there's going to be pressure, obviously, on the interior against Matt Ryan, who is a pocket passer. And so you're going to get him off his spot. You're going to get his timing off. You're going to be, of course, playing in front of a crazy Lincoln Financial Field crowd that will be ready and rocking in this one. The Eagles, by the way, have been fantastic at home this year. So I think the Falcons are going to struggle to put up points. Here's the reality. Falcons only scored 22.1 points per game. That's good for 15th in the league. That's average. This is an average offense. We're all talking about how the Philadelphia Eagles are in trouble because of Nick Foles. The Falcons are average. They had a scoring average of 33.8 points in 2016. Of course, that was their Super Bowl run, right? So the Steve Sarkisian kind of offense here for Atlanta, not so good. By the way, the forecast, rain and temperatures dropping to near freezing throughout the day. This will be a big Jay Ajayi game. I think the Philadelphia Eagles have to get him going to mask some of the deficiencies of Nick Foles. And if Foles can get the play action working too, get some shots down the field to Alshon Jeffrey and Torrey Smith, who knows? So in summary here, I lack trust in the Falcons offense. I don't have overwhelming faith in Philly's offense either. But I'm going to take the home team here. Philadelphia 20-14. Remember back in 2013, guys. Foles went 23 of 33 for 195 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no picks in that playoff game, right, against the New Orleans Saints. That was the 2013 season. And so he kept the Eagles relevant in that playoff game. He was not the reason they lost. So give me Philadelphia to get to the NFC Championship game. All right? Fly, Eagles, fly. 2014, your final score. We got one more game to get to. Minnesota and New Orleans. Now, in my opinion, this is essentially the NFC Championship game. These are the 2 best teams in the NFC in my eyes, but only one can advance. This is your Sunday late window game. Game of the weekend, in my opinion, and I think that it's fitting that it's the last game that you will see on your football Sunday. So the Vikings beat the Saints way back in week 1, 29-19. Look, throw that out the window because Adrian Peterson was on the Saints and Sam Bradford was playing QB then. And by the way, Adrian Peterson was yelling at Sean Payton and stuff. Like, this is a long time ago. So, again, same premise with the Steelers and Jaguars, 2 totally different games here. So the real fun matchup is New Orleans' run game against Minnesota's front 7. Strength versus strength. Ingram and Kamara were historically good in the regular season, while the Vikings' front, led by Everson Griffin and Linval Joseph, have barely given up plays on the ground. Big plays, that is. And so I think it's going to be a really fun matchup. And in a situation like this, when you have an elite run game and an elite defense, I always tend to lean on the elite defense. It's kind of like the whole elite pitcher versus elite batter argument. Usually you go with the elite pitching, right? Because usually that trumps the good batter. So I am going with Minnesota's front 7 to kind of bottle up Ingram and Kamara here. And then you have Xavier Rhodes locked in on Michael Thomas. I'm not sure where the Saints are going to throw the football. I mean, you have Trey Waynes perhaps on Ted Ginn. Ted Ginn's going to have a baller type of day, kind of like he had against the Carolina Panthers. And let's remember, that game with the Saints and the Panthers, Cam Newton and that offense, they had a good chunk of yardage, right? The Saints gave up some quality yards against the Carolina Panthers. So this is likely for me to come down to special teams and the intangibles here and home field advantage. The Vikings crowd is a pretty darn good one, and I think both teams will be on several 3rd and long situations because I think the front sevens are going to ball out. But the problem is, when Case Keenum is on 3rd and long, he's got silence. Drew Brees, he's got a raucous crowd behind him. That's going to matter. Give me the Minnesota Vikings to win this football game 24-20. You probably know out there, if you are a loyal Cam Rogers Show listener, I have the Minnesota Vikings winning the Super Bowl. So this should not come to a shock for many people out there. 24-20, your final score. But again, these are two of the better teams in the NFC, and obviously a game that is very difficult to predict. But those are my predictions for the divisional round. It's going to be a fun weekend of football, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Cam Rogers Show here on Chat Sports Facebook Live. I am Cam Rogers. Follow me on Twitter at Mr. Rogers99. Be sure to comment about my picks and my analysis. I'll be sure to respond to all of your comments after the show is over. So speaking of the playoffs, let's get into updated Super Bowl 52 odds here. I'm counting you down from 8 to 1. We'll start off with the Tennessee Titans. They are a long shot to win Super Bowl 52. Why is that? Well, they're going to have to go through New England first and then presumably Pittsburgh and then probably play the Minnesota Vikings in the Super Bowl. Those are 3 difficult games. You see the long shot odds there, plus 5,000. So the Tennessee Titans, look, congratulations. You got into the playoffs, kind of limped into the playoffs, really. You found a way to squeak through the Kansas City Chiefs after they gave up a 21-3 lead, just absolutely unbelievable in its own right. But your run is over. Tennessee Titans ranked number 8 for a reason. All right, so we're going to jump ahead here. This is a big gap, 5,000 to 1,800. The Jacksonville Jaguars checking in at number 7 in terms of Super Bowl 52 odds. And for the Jags, look, I guess they can kind of rely on the fact that they beat the Pittsburgh Steelers earlier this season, but they too are going to have a difficult path, right? They first of all have to beat Pittsburgh in a rabid Heinz Field and then go ahead and try to beat New England in the AFC Championship game. That's going to be difficult. So for Jacksonville, I'm not putting any money on this team at all. This is not part of my best bets. I'll give you a hint on that one. So the Jaguars, long shot odds. Blake Bortles, no trust in him at the quarterback position. He's making some weird comments to the media lately, and I just don't really know what's happening with him. So Jaguars staying very far away in terms of money or betting of any sort. Okay, number 6, the Philadelphia Eagles. Now this is intriguing, 1,400 here. And for Philadelphia, it's kind of an easy game here against an Atlanta Falcons team that has its fair share of concerns, right, on that offensive side. I alluded to it. They're an average offense. And so I think the Eagles have a very real chance to win. I'm already predicting them to win. And who knows what can happen in the NFC Championship game. Heck, if the Saints stun the Vikings this week, the Eagles get the home game in the NFC Championship. Right? And, of course, the same would be said if Minnesota were to win, too. But I think it matters more if New Orleans wins because, I think New Orleans on the road is a kind of a iffy team, especially out in the cold at Lincoln Financial. So Philadelphia, a very intriguing odd here to get to Super Bowl 52 and win it. And we want to know from you, can Nick Foles lead the Eagles to the Super Bowl? Throw in your votes, a like for yes, a heart for no, and it's a polarizing topic because a lot of people have been jumping in my comment section of late about Nick Foles, and some say he can do it, some say he can't. So I want to hear from you as we are on Facebook Live. I am watching my broadcast on my laptop right now. I want to see your votes. A like for yes, Nick Foles can lead the Eagles to the Super Bowl, a heart for no. And keep those reactions coming as we track them throughout the program here. So the Eagles are at 6. How about their opponents, the Atlanta Falcons at number 5, plus 700 odds. And I think there's a lot of weight to this because the Falcons were just in the Super Bowl, number 1. And number 2, I think Vegas doesn't trust Nick Foles all that much. So they think that it's an easy path for Atlanta to at least get to the NFC Championship game, and maybe if they play a Saints team, could find a way to win because they're more familiar, of course, with their NFC South rival rather than the Minnesota Vikings. Falcons at 5. I'm not really touching them here. Like I said, I gave you plenty of stats and analysis about this offense here for Atlanta. Big-time concerns. And so Atlanta at 5, kind of looking past this one. How about number 4, though? The New Orleans Saints. This one I feel better about. So plus 550 here at number 4 in our rankings in the latest Super Bowl odds. And a team that is dangerous. Like I said, if they beat Minnesota, they're going to the Super Bowl. And they have a very real shot to beat the New England Patriots if Drew Brees can ball out and Kamara and Ingram. Look, they're going to find a lot of success against New England. That front 7, not as good as some of the opponents the Saints will be facing in the NFC. So the Saints at 4 is very intriguing to me because I think there is a path for them to get to Super Bowl 52 and then win it. Right? Because they have the pieces on defense with Crowley and Marshawn Lattimore in the secondary. They can lock down on those New England receivers. I'm looking ahead to the Super Bowl here. And you got a front line on the offensive side, front 5, that's pretty good. Although it looks like Andrews Pete is hurt, so losing a pretty darn good guard hurts for New Orleans, but still good offensive line and Drew Brees. I mean, if you put Tom Brady at 1 in terms of most trust in the playoff field at the quarterback position, I think you got to put Drew Brees at number 2. All right, so the Saints are there at 4. Third best odds to win Super Bowl 52. The Pittsburgh Steelers at plus 500, and they'll probably win against the Jacksonville Jaguars this week at Heinz Field. The problem for me is this. The Steelers cannot beat the Patriots. I've talked about how there's this whole trifecta among the Chiefs, the Steelers, and the Patriots. The Patriots seemingly can't beat the Chiefs. The Chiefs seemingly can't beat the Steelers. And the Steelers seemingly can't beat the New England Patriots. And I will give the Steelers a lot of credit here because they probably should have won that football game against New England earlier this year. They did not. The difference here is that in the AFC Championship game, Pittsburgh's going to New England. So they're going on the road, and look, I give them a shot to contend and beat the Patriots because if they do that man coverage on the outside, rough up those New England receivers, I think there's a shot. They certainly can't do that zone coverage that Tom Brady loves. But for the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think the path is more difficult than, say, the New Orleans Saints, ranked at number 4. All right, so there's Pittsburgh at 3. Number 2, the Minnesota Vikings, second best odds to hoist the Lombardi Trophy. And I talked about how impressive this Vikings team is. I'm talking about secondary on that defensive side, to the linebacker core, to the front line. Solid top down. And then the offense, Case Keenum has been effective. Stephon Diggs has been amazing. Adam Thielen has been absolutely unbelievable. Just imagine if Dalvin Cook was at the running back position right now. The Vikings, I would be so much more confident that they were going to win the Super Bowl. So for Minnesota here at number 2, I like that. I'm a fan of that as a, kind of a bettor out there because I want everybody to go on New England and jump on the Brady train and all that stuff because they're going to be there at number 1. I'll give you a hint. I'd rather put my money with the Minnesota Vikings. So here are the Patriots. They are the favorite to win Super Bowl 52. Yeah, the defending champs and all that jazz. But I'm telling you, there are some very real concerns about Tom Brady's play. And I'm talking about in terms of what it means for the Super Bowl, because I already know that he's going to get there. But, can he get it done against a Minnesota Vikings defense? I don't know. So for the Patriots, I think they will get to the Super Bowl. But, I think it's going to be a very difficult matchup against the Minnesota Vikings. That's why I'm not putting my faith in New England. I'm not putting my money down there, although they are number 1 in our latest Super Bowl odds. All right, so let's recap and take a look at the rankings here. 5 through 8, we got the Falcons, Eagles, Jaguars, and Titans. Those are the sleepers, I guess, the dark horses. And then the favorites, the Patriots, the Vikings, the Steelers, and the Saints, number 1 through 4. All right, Casino Cam's best bets for Super Bowl 52. Let's get to it. New Orleans Saints, plus 550. Talked a little bit about them. I think the path is certainly doable. If they can beat the Minnesota Vikings, that means they're going to take on a Philadelphia Eagles team that, albeit, will be tough to beat on the road. But I like this Saints team with the odds. It's all relevant to the odds, all relative to the odds, right? Because if the Saints were higher up, I probably wouldn't put my money down. But I like this New Orleans team because they can win in two different facets with that offensive line and running the football and Kamara out in space, but also can chuck the ball downfield to Coleman and Michael Thomas, who's been absolutely amazing. Nobody's talking about him. So the Saints can win in many different ways. They can create turnovers too. Cam Jordan, oh, what a year on that front line. So I like putting some money down for the New Orleans Saints to win Super Bowl 52. All right, and another one here, the Atlanta Falcons. Again, all relative to the current odds, plus 700. Look, the Falcons are a team that if they get on a run, sure they can get there. I might sprinkle a few dollars the Atlanta Falcons way. And so, although I don't think they're going to beat the Philadelphia Eagles this week, you know, heck, I'll give it a shot. I'll throw some money down on that game and see what the Falcons can do because it's, again, at plus 700. I like that. I like that number. All right, and then finally, the Minnesota Vikings, obviously putting money down on them because they are going to win Super Bowl 52. I just told you, right? So it's going to happen. So I'm going all in on the Minnesota Vikings. Skol, as they say out there in Minneapolis. I got the Vikings taking it all the way. So Casino Cam, best bet number one, certainly Minnesota. All right, this is the Cam Rogers Show here on Chat Sports Facebook Live. Throw in those comments, ladies and gentlemen, as we are presented by the Game Time app. Get up to 60% off all those last-minute sports tickets, concert tickets, and so much more. You really got to check out this app. 5 stars from the voters out there. Chatsports.com/tickets, and I was looking online. Really cheap prices for the Dallas Mavs and SMU basketball, or heck, you want to go see Shakira? Hips don't lie. There you go, chatsports.com/tickets, and you can find out all the cheap prices out there. All right, we're going to take a look at my top 10 mock draft, and I'm not doing a full-on mock draft because I'm going to wait until the Super Bowl is over and we essentially have the order set. So I want to just go ahead and do the top 10. So, of course, the Cleveland Browns, they have clinched that number 1 spot, and Sam Darnold is going to Ohio to play for Cleveland. And look, he's going to stay there. I don't think that's going to change in my different versions as we go forward towards the draft. I think he's a better fit than Josh Rosen, given recent comments from Rosen. I'm sure you all know what I'm talking about in regards to Rosen saying that he'd rather play for a team that is a good fit for him, not that team that kind of needs him kind of deal. So Darnold, he needs some polishing. But if the Browns and John Dorsey commit to him, Darnold can certainly push Deshaun Kaiser in OTAs and training camp. I mean, there can't be a lot of confidence among the players in the Cleveland locker room that Deshaun Kaiser can lead this team to the promised land. I just don't think there's a lot of confidence. So you bring in Sam Darnold, right? And he's, again, going to need his reps. He's going to have to polish up a little bit. But he's going to bring a lot of excitement to Cleveland. And I think that's more important than anything else at this point. This fan base literally just had a parade for going 0-16. They are fed up. They are done with this. They want a true quarterback that can lead them, and I think Sam Darnold can be that guy. And the Cleveland Browns will be picking at number 4 thanks to the Houston Texans. So I've got another fun pick for you, so stay tuned for that one. But Sam Darnold, a very intriguing name to watch out for, and could be headed to Cleveland. I'm predicting it, which means Josh Rosen is going to the New York Giants, number 2 overall. And he'll have an opportunity to learn and develop under Eli Manning. I think Rosen has a unique personality, but so does Eli. Remember Eli Manning coming out of the draft? I mean, he was kind of different. And I think Josh Rosen's unique personality can kind of fit in the Big Apple. I think it makes sense here. And Rosen, you look at the tape, certainly was not blessed with a good offensive line or defense at UCLA this past year especially, but it's clear he can make the necessary throws, great in the pocket, throws tight spirals. That's what really stands out to me, and perhaps has the best arm, raw arm, in the draft. And this is going to be a debate as we go up until the NFL draft. Who would you rather have at quarterback? So everybody out there, pretend you're a general manager for an NFL team. Think about this. Do you want Josh Rosen or do you want Sam Darnold? And I want you to comment in the section below as you watch this video, and we'll be tracking what you say. Because I am really intrigued about this whole Darnold and Rosen debate. And there are some sleeper quarterbacks out there too. I mean, Baker Mayfield, obviously, Mason Rudolph, who knows, Riley Ferguson in the second or third round. But it's going to come down to these two names at the top, right? Darnold and Rosen. So who would you rather have to kind of build your franchise around? And again, this is a way in, so we want you commenting here on Facebook Live. All right, so I've got Darnold to Cleveland, Rosen to the Giants. Picking number 3 overall, the Indianapolis Colts. Outside of Anthony Costanzo and Ryan Kelly at center, I think the Colts have major issues on the offensive line. Look, Chris Ballard and the leadership in Indianapolis should be focusing on the health of Andrew Luck and what they can do to kind of ease Andrew Luck into this kind of new wave of an Indianapolis Colts tenure, in a sense, because we didn't see him at all this past year, and the Colts are going to have a new head coach, is to build the offensive line. And so, especially on the interior, Quenton Nelson is one of the better run blockers coming out of the draft, perhaps the best run blocker coming out of the draft. And so, if you can pair him up with Ryan Kelly at center, right, and then you have Costanzo at left tackle, who's been solid, get a run game going. I think the Colts should attack the running back position in the draft as well, along with linebacker and offensive tackle, right tackle especially. The run game is going to be so important for Andrew Luck and his health, because Luck loves the play action. And if you can get that going and maybe some plays to the tight ends as well, that's what Andrew Luck likes to do. So it starts with the offensive line, it starts in the interior, and Quenton Nelson is a guy who could be starting in week 1. Extremely powerful, moves players off the ball. And you know what really sticks out to me, guys? He finishes his blocks. That is a big effort indicator. Quenton Nelson is a pancaker, in a sense. There aren't many stats out there for offensive linemen, but pancake is one of them. And Quenton Nelson likes his pancakes. He might actually like real pancakes, too. Who knows? So, look, I like the tape a lot. 6'5", 325 in terms of his weight. Helps other linemen around him in the run game. So he can help out Ryan Kelly or right tackle or whatever it may be. Maybe if he's at left guard, who knows? So, you know, he's a great leader, and I think he has a good base in pass protection. He's wide enough to plug up the holes in the interior. One pro comparison is Brandon Brooks, guard who currently plays for the Philadelphia Eagles, having a great year. So Quenton Nelson, big name there at number 3. Number 4, via the Houston Texans, the Cleveland Browns select Saquon Barkley, running back out of Penn State. So the Browns get Darnold, and then they get Saquon, number 1 and number 4, respectively. Why is that? I think Saquon could provide a lot of excitement. He's a spark plug, probably the most NFL-ready running back in the draft. The Browns' offensive line is solid with Zeitler and Joe Thomas and Petonio there, that I think all Cleveland needs is a good running back, because Isaiah Crowell is not a good running back. We have seen that. We've seen the evidence of that. So I think Saquon would be a fantastic pickup for the Cleveland Browns. And a new QB and a new running back starting in week 1 would be a perfect way, in my eyes, for the Cleveland Browns fan base to totally forget about that 0-16 campaign. 5'11", 233 pounds, runs a 4.33 40-yard dash, power cleans 405 pounds, squatted 525 pounds 5 times, no injury history, and the guy is young. Perfect pick for the Cleveland Browns. Thank you, Houston Texans, Cleveland Browns fans are saying. Saquon Barkley going to Ohio. All right. Number 4 overall there. Let's get to number 5. The Denver Broncos taking Mike McGlinchey, tackle out of Notre Dame. And I currently am believing that the Denver Broncos, and this of course could change, will go out and get Kirk Cousins. The Kirk Cousins era in Washington is over, in my opinion. Washington is going to botch this because that's what Washington does. And so, look, they've been doing it the last couple of years, right? They've been kind of kicking the can and franchise tagging Kirk Cousins, and that means, like, Kirk Cousins is getting frustrated. He wants security. If he gets tagged again, he's going to be PO'd. And I think during the negotiations and all this stuff, if Kirk Cousins starts to get the indication that the Redskins are not going to give him a long-term deal, he's going to request a trade. And John Elway loves his free agent quarterbacks. So McGlinchey, tackle, yes. Denver needs some help on the offensive line. I think at guard, at tackle, really the entire front five. And so I think McGlinchey would be a good pickup. He is obviously not as good as Quentin Nelson, but he is the nation's top tackle according to Pro Football Focus. And I think he's got the makings of a solid right tackle. Heavy hands, physical, good base, moves well. And McGlinchey can kind of take over and help the run game for C.J. Anderson in the backfield there for Denver. So McGlinchey, he's more of a run blocker. Not great in pass protection, but solid. But it's all about the run game for Denver, right? It's not necessarily about dropping back and throwing the football 50 times. If Denver can run the football effectively and Kirk Cousins can chuck it around a little bit, hey, I think that would be a match made in heaven there for Denver. Willie chiming in the comments section. Will the Broncos take a quarterback? Willie, appreciate the comment, my man. I think it's a very real possibility. But Willie, I am currently projecting that Kirk Cousins goes to Denver, and so the Broncos won't get a quarterback, at least number 5 overall. Now, if they don't get Kirk Cousins, I could see Baker Mayfield perhaps going to Denver. All right, so there are the Broncos at number 5. Number 6, Minkah Fitzpatrick, defensive back out of Alabama, just won the national championship game. He's feeling good. He's a versatile player. He can play in the safety position as well as corner. So I think that is very promising for the Jets. And the Jets have some young pieces on defense to build around here. And I think Fitzpatrick makes a lot of sense here as well, kind of learning under Todd Bowles. I think Bowles is a great defensive mind, and I think Fitzpatrick would be a good pick by the Jets. So Minkah going to the Jets. How about number 7 overall, Bradley Chubb? The Bucs were dead last in sacks. They need pass rush help. Chubb, of course, defensive end out of NC State. Great leader and had a great career in college. 190 career tackles, 53 tackles for loss, 25 sacks, a big effort guy, plays all 60 minutes. That's what you want, right, in a defensive player especially on that front line getting after the quarterbacks, because he's going to have to be chasing Cam Newton twice a year. So Bucs get some pass rush help. They need it. They could also address the offensive line, but I think they need to go defensive line first. So Bradley Chubb goes to Tampa Bay. And we will stick on the defensive side here with number 8 overall, the Chicago Bears. They have need at wide receiver. There's no doubt about it. And I think there's a possibility they go ahead and reach for a Calvin Ridley or Sutton, etc. But I think they're going to have to go with best player available on the board here. And I think Arden Key, one of the better players available at this point, defensive end and linebacker out of LSU. In the modern NFL, guys, rushers and corners are highly coveted. And if you want to look at a weakness for Chicago's defense, it's the edge rushing ability. Sam Acho and Lamar Houston both had down years on the edge. And so I think Arden Key can kind of come in here and be effective in pass rushing ability. Look at the scoring defense. They were ranked 9th this year. Again, really good. This is not a need pick. This is a, essentially great player. Let's get him and let's be disruptive, even more disruptive on defense kind of pick. So Arden Key goes to Chicago. I think learning under Vic Fangio will be big for him. So Chicago Bears, they get Arden. There at number 8 overall. Number 9 overall, San Francisco 49ers. You see a little star next to the Niners at the top of your screen. That's because they're going to be flipping a coin with the Oakland Raiders thanks to a tie. So the Raiders are coming up next. We flipped our own coin. We have the Niners picking 9. So Josh Jackson. 49ers have an elite piece on the line with DeForest Buckner. An elite linebacker, Reuben Foster. There's nobody in the secondary. Jackson can be that elite corner, can be that third building block on that top line at the secondary. And Dante Johnson was awful last season, ranking 118th among corners according to Pro Football Focus. Ahkello Witherspoon, though, was really good. And so I think Josh Jackson next to Witherspoon could provide two young, promising corners on the outside. Well-coached player coming out of Iowa. I like him a lot. At number 9 overall, going to the San Francisco 49ers. So that means at number 10, the Oakland Raiders. And so this is an interesting pick here. I have Denzel Ward, cornerback out of Ohio State. He's a small-ish guy, at least, you know, in terms of what NFL teams want these days out of corners. They want 6'1" and above here, 5'10", so, you know, may not have the height that teams covet, but makes up for it with smooth movement and a great burst. I think he's a really intelligent corner, and if the Raiders can somehow re-sign T.J. Carey and hopefully cut Sean Smith, Ward comes in, and he could be a productive corner alongside T.J., and I think that would be huge for the Oakland Raiders. And I could also see linebacker here for Oakland as well. So maybe a Roquan Smith, etc. But I like Denzel Ward here. I think corners go early in the draft. I think it's kind of a top-heavy cornerback class here. So the question is, with John Gruden now as the head coach, will he go on the offensive side or will he go with the defense? Very, very interesting thing to monitor there. But I got Denzel going to the Oakland Raiders at number 10 overall. Let's recap my NFL mock draft for the top 10 if you're just tuning into the program here. Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen, Quenton Nelson, Saquon, and Mike McGlinchey 1 through 5 there. Cleveland gets a couple of stud offensive players. And then Minkah Fitzpatrick, Bradley Chubb, Arden Key, Josh Jackson, Denzel Ward, all defensive players in 6 through 10. So there's your top 10 NFL mock draft. This is The Cam Rogers Show here on Chat Sports Facebook Live. Follow me on Twitter at Mr. Rogers99, no relation to the man in the sweater vest. So we are continuing along here on the program, episode 51. Be sure to keep those comments a-flowing. Again, I'll be sure to answer any questions you may have as well as track your votes during the reaction polls. So keep them coming, ladies and gentlemen. Next segment here, latest NFL rumors. So we're going to start off with the situation with Kirk Cousins. Could he go to the Cleveland Browns? Unbelievable stuff here. The Kirk Cousins circus continues. So Albert Breer of Sports Illustrated told 92.3 The Fan in Cleveland, quote, "My feeling is that he would very seriously consider the Browns. I think he'd also consider the Jaguars and Jets. I think the Browns would be in that group." So to me, it sounds like the Redskins are in no hurry to sign Cousins to a long-term deal, which means I think there is going to be more and more frustration among the Cousins camp here. And like I said earlier in the program, Cousins wants security, right? He wants a long-term deal. He does not want the can to be kicked down the road again, getting tagged yet again. So I think Kirk Cousins may actually request a trade at some point if he starts to get a sense that negotiations are not going towards a long-term deal. And so this rumor here about going to the Cleveland Browns, not absolutely out of the question, although I think Denver or maybe the Jets is more likely. So for Kirk Cousins, I think he's on his way out. I really do. I don't think he's going to remain in Washington, and I want to hear from you. Which team is the best fit for Kirk Cousins out there? Jacksonville, maybe? The Jets? The Broncos? Maybe you think he should just stay with the Redskins? Throw in your comments here, and we'll be certainly taking a look at who you think Kirk Cousins should go to, or which team Kirk Cousins should go to there. All right, so that's rumor number 1. Rumor number 2, essentially a foregone conclusion, barring an official announcement for the Carolina Panthers here. Norv Turner will be the offensive coordinator for Carolina. Sat out this past season, former Minnesota offensive coordinator, and this coming from Adam Schefter, so it's essentially a done deal. Norv coming back to the NFL fold. I think this is a great pickup because you look back to what Norv Turner said back in June. What's his biggest priority? Decision-making. What's Cam Newton's biggest weakness? Decision-making. Match made in heaven. Turner has worked with some big names, Aikman, Breeze, although briefly, and Rivers. He turned around Aikman from 20 touchdown passes and 36 interceptions in his first 2 seasons, right? That was Aikman. Then Turner came into the fold, came to Dallas, and Aikman had 49 touchdown passes and 30 interceptions. Rivers had 62 touchdowns to just 20 picks in Turner's second and third seasons with the Chargers. Rivers had 43 touchdowns and 24 picks in the previous 2 seasons, obviously without Norv. So if the report is true, and Adam Schefter's saying it's probably true, this would be a huge boost for Cam Newton, whose mechanics and decision-making could use some improvement. Now, Cam has been to a Super Bowl, absolutely. He can win a Super Bowl with the way in which he's playing right now. But still, Norv Turner can kind of send Cam over the top here. So I think it's a great hire for the Carolina Panthers. All right, next rumor, Matt Patricia. Who is it going to be, Matt? Giants or the Lions? So the Giants interview process is over, and Patricia and Panthers defensive coordinator Steve Wilks appear to be the favorites. Patricia reportedly favors the Giants over the Lions, but let's not ignore the connection between Bob Quinn here and Matt Patricia from the New England days. And, you know, I think Belichick actually has some influence here. I think Belichick is in Matt Patricia's ear right now saying, look, Matt, if I were you, I would take the Giants job. And I think that's kind of why Patricia is leaning towards New York rather than Detroit. And so it's kind of a back and forth. This rumor is very much kind of up in the air about where Matt Patricia will eventually go. And the Giants are expected to take their time here. Dave Gettleman, the new GM, kind of going through the motions, going through his due diligence. So I think this could drag things out for the Lions, because the Lions want Matt Patricia. I think he's like top 2 or 3 in terms of their wish list. So we might not hear about Patricia in terms of a hiring, in terms of a new location for a very long time. So another report kind of going along with this rumor is that whoever doesn't get Patricia between the Giants and the Lions will likely hire Mike Vrabel, defensive coordinator out of Houston. I think would be a great hire as well. So that obviously depends on where Patricia goes, but let's say Matt goes to the Giants, Detroit may very well go ahead and hire Mike Vrabel, a great defensive mind, young, up and coming. So interesting little rumor here about Matt Patricia. His decision looks like it could come down to the Big Apple and the Motor City. Next rumor, Nick Saban. Is he headed to the NFL? All right, this is like totally a joke here, it seems. Bruce Arians was recently on Fox Sports Radio, says, wouldn't surprise me if Saban went to the Giants. And then he said that the Giants' job is one that Saban covets. So, interesting stuff. And then eventually, Jay Glazer posted a picture on Instagram with Arians with him, and basically saying that Arians told him he was just messing with everybody about this. So, Bruce, you can't do that, my man, because you set the agenda when you say that stuff. Like, here we are thinking that Nick Saban could be headed to the Giants. Of course, just won a national championship with Alabama, 6 national championships, the best college football coach in history, and all of a sudden making a change to the NFL. It seems ludicrous, and I think it is. This is a pretty crazy rumor, but one that I thought we should put up for all the folks at home to kind of react to. So, by the way, that picture also included John Fox, who is currently unemployed. So there you go. Nick Saban rumor. He's not going to the NFL. He's staying with Bama. All right, Pat Schurmer, offensive coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings. He is the #1 guy among circles in Arizona. So with the Cardinals in need of a quarterback, it's not crazy to think that Pat Schurmer would go to Arizona and, by the way, bring Case Keenum with him, right, to the big toaster out there. Because Shermer has done a fantastic job with Case Keenum this year in Minnesota. And Keenum, Bridgewater, and Bradford are all going to be free agents after this season. There's no way in heck the Vikings are going to keep all 3 of those quarterbacks. So, in that sense, this rumor here is that Pat Schurmer could be headed to Arizona, and he may bring Case Keenum with him, which I think would be a fantastic play because Keenum is going to have a pretty darn good running back behind them in one David Johnson. Let's not forget about him. So I think the Cardinals could certainly get back into the playoff fold next year if they hire Shermer and Shermer brings Case Keenum with him to Arizona. Maybe even it's Sam Bradford. Who knows? I think Teddy Bridgewater will be the guy who stays with Minnesota. Now, I don't think Pat Schurmer is the best hire for Arizona. I think the Cardinals should hire John DeFilippo, quarterback's coach for Philadelphia, but you obviously can't go wrong with Pat. I think he's a good offensive mind, and I think everybody can kind of give him a pass about his tenure in Cleveland as the head coach there. Was not a good one at that, but still kind of turned things around here, built up his reputation with Minnesota. Kind of like Josh McDaniels, right? It was a disaster when he was the head coach of Denver, but when he became the offensive coordinator for New England, began to rebuild that reputation. And that's why he is highly coveted among many NFL teams out there searching for a head coach. So Pat Schurmer to Arizona, I think it's a very real possibility. In my eyes, I still think the Cardinals should hire John DeFilippo, but Case Keenum, Pat Schurmer, could be a package deal and something that we are monitoring there. All right, that's your rumors roundup here on the Cam Rogers Show. A final word here about LeVeon Bell. And he came out and said yesterday that if he doesn't get a long-term deal, he may sit out the season or even retire. So he is threatening the Pittsburgh Steelers right now. And oh, by the way, they have a game to play on Sunday against the Jacksonville Jaguars. LeVeon, probably not a good thing to say right now, but he did say it. So, look, Bell played on a $12.1 million franchise tag in 2017 and is projected to increase to $14.5 million for the next season if they do tag him. So it's not like there's a shortage of money here, right? LeVeon Bell, obviously one of the more elite running backs out there, but going ahead and saying that is kind of odd. Like, he won't rule out retiring. That's ridiculous, and I don't think he will. I think he's, playing a game of chicken here with Pittsburgh's leadership out there, and we all know how Pittsburgh doesn't like to talk about contract situations during the season. This is going to go into the offseason, obviously. But I do feel that the Pittsburgh Steelers would be crazy to not work out a long-term deal for LeVeon Bell. Yes, you can make the argument that some running backs out there are expendable. LeVeon Bell is not one of those running backs. This guy is a revolutionary back. In terms of the way he runs the football, patience lets the blocks happen. And there's not a lot of depth behind LeVeon on that Pittsburgh squad. So I think the Steelers would be insane to not work out a long-term deal. Teams can tag a player between February 20th and March 6th, after which they would have until July 16th at 4 p.m. to work out that long-term deal. So this could go all the way into the summer, ladies and gentlemen. But LeVeon Bell threatening the Steelers with retirement, yeah, that's kind of cringeworthy, LeVeon, because we know you're not going to do that. So there you go. That is the final word here in the Cam Rogers Show. I am Cam Rogers. Follow me on Twitter at Mr. Rogers99. And a final thank you to the Game Time app for sponsoring today's show. Get up to 60% off all those last-minute sports tickets, concert tickets, and so much more. Check them out. Download the app, chatsports.com/tickets. All right, it's a big weekend of football, divisional round games coming at us, and they kickstart tomorrow afternoon. Friendly reminder to throw in your comments. I'll be sure to answer after the show loops. So we'll be replaying the show for the next couple of hours if you missed any analysis or anything like that, so don't you worry. And, of course, download the podcast version of the Cam Rogers Show on iTunes by searching the Cam Rogers Show and get me wherever you go. I am out of here, ladies and gentlemen. I'll see you back here 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on a Monday with NFL highlights, analysis, and a look ahead to Conference Championship weekend. Enjoy the weekend, everybody. Take care.